host of a children's show here on Netflix with Julie Andrews. On Julie's Green Room, and I just had a show, an animated show. I hadn't done voiceover in a while, and I just got back into it. A show called Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts on Netflix, which was an honor to work on. It's a really fun, inclusive, diverse show. And I also, I've done some indie films. I played Sandra Oh's son in a movie called Catfight on Netflix, and I also produce and write and perform music under a solo act called Tarun. That's my stuff. Yeah. I'll pass it on to my guy Jason.
Hi everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank Brian for having me here on the panel, and it's such honor to be here speaking with all of you guys. So yeah, great honor for me to be here. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Music for Change. My name is Jason Chao Dai. As you heard Brian earlier, I was one of Brian's teachers while coaching him. I am a professional Latin dancer, and I was two-time national champions, and I represented USA in World Championships 3 times. Besides being a competitive ballroom dancer, I was on the show So You Think You Can Dance and made it to the final in season 12. On top of that, I do a lot of teaching and teach a lot of Asian American kids. That's my forte. I would say that it's been one of my passion to help Asian American dancers to grow, to inspire them to continue to dance in America. So I really am loving the job I have as a teacher, as a coach for Asian American in general. Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Jane?
Hi. I am Jane. Hello. And sorry I hopped on a little late. And please excuse me. I was watching the Joe Biden speech and I've basically been bawling. Very joyfully so. Oh my gosh. so it was like, should I put makeup on? What's the point? Hi, I'm Jane, and I'm a musician, first of all. I am a producer, arranger, and I have a solo project for a number of years. I started playing a long time ago. I play keys, some guitar. Once in a while, I hop on the accordion for fun. But I started a YouTube channel many years ago, and a lot of my fan base comes from that. And I ended up working with a number of really wonderful human beings in the industry that some of them have nothing to do with music. Felicia Day opened for Vienna Tang, Jason Mraz. And music, I kind of stopped doing music for a while because I got a little sick of it and numb, I think. And so went into acting. And by a stroke of a number of lucky draws, I landed on Cambodian Rock Band, which is a show that Brooke and Dice and I were in together for a long time. Awesome. And yeah, and so I was one of the arrangers on the show, and that show just sort of, for me, used my skills kind of to a max. And I just love that show. And that I released an album earlier during the pandemic, and we can talk about that later. Yeah. And invited a lot of really dream musicians in my kind of world to play along. And so at some point, I hope to play it out. That's me. Woo. Yeah. Should I hand it back?
Who's next?
Oh, Rosanna.
I just realized I never said my name. I'm sorry.
Over there, it's labeled as GG.
I'm my name is Julian Yao Joyello. It's very hard to spell and remember, so I apologize ahead of time.
Should I add? I'll add my pronouns too. I like to try to get into the habit of that. Yeah. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Great.
His, him, here.
He, him, his.
Hi. So sorry about my internet issues and Wi-Fi. I'm Rosanna Gao. I am from Great Neck, New York, and I am a high school student. I'm really passionate about musical theater, volunteering, music, and I really like giving back to my community. I think that's really important. And I also really focus on Asian representation in theater because I know that when I began theater, I was like the only Asian, and it was very difficult for me to try to fit in. So it's really been one of my biggest passions. I am a recipient of the National Honor Thespian Award, and I've done a lot of musical theater performances. I participate in All County, which is a choir thing, and I'm really excited that all of you guys are here today. And I'm really excited to kick it off.
Awesome, Rosanna. Yes.
Yay! Wow. Thanks for making this happen.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. To kick it off, I actually really like the passing it on idea. So maybe I'll start with maybe Jane, because you went last. Maybe you could start it off. What actually got you into the arts? And because sometimes it's hard for people to get in, you know.
Okay. I kind of I'm kind of a child. I feel like, and I go through life by feel, and so I think I've always wanted to be in be in the arts, and wasn't allowed to, as many Asian American families do. It's not an unusual story, and I had a big, kind of. I had to fight my family quite a bit for that, and kind of show them that this is really what I want. But okay, not only what I want, but that I am worth it, that I can do it, right? And so there's a lot of kind of proving to family to start with, and I feel like sometimes I still am. Even like my dad passed away many years ago, I still am proving to him. Like that relationship continues to change and evolve over the years, and so I basically just started, high school, college, singing in bands. I didn't write. I didn't believe I could write. I talked myself down until I was in a little pop duo that was doing really well, and then my partner at the time broke it off. It's one of those, like, we were romantically involved and it didn't work out, so sorry, bye. And then I needed something to sing. I didn't have any of my own songs, and so my sort of journey to writing came out of desperation. I needed to make something if I couldn't collaborate. And so that's the journey, that's the beginning of the relying on my own creative drive. Yeah. And then at that point on, I kind of started doing I actually just did the very kind of how do you say formulaic way of doing it, I guess, of going to open mics, putting out a mailing list, putting a demo together, and it wasn't going anywhere. And then suddenly, and I wasn't like into the Asian American mindset yet, because I grew up in Hong Kong. That's where I'm from. And so I didn't even think that I was an Asian until I came here, right? Like there's no recognition that I am anything different from my environment until you see the difference. And so for a long time, it was always just, I'm just an artist. The thing with that is there's always this extra role that I have to make room for, is that I am an Asian American, and that those who are looking to do something similar to me will look at me and go, oh, she's doing it, maybe I can too, even though I didn't ask for that role, right? And so for a long time, there was a little bit of a negotiation trying to understand what that is for me, because I'm not making Asian American music in my mind. I'm making music that I want to hear for myself, that I can make. And so anyway, I went to LA for shows. I'm in LA now, and joined a competition called Collaboration, which is originally it was a Korean American talent competition, but they opened it up to all Asian Americans. And to be among other Asian Americans, that was the first time I had experienced the immense support system that was already in place by just seeing you, that understanding the cultural context of how hard it is to be doing what you do in the arts. Family struggle aside, Like it's about having this skin color in an industry that is mostly dominated by white, right? And so that support system blew me away, and I ended up moving here. I just started to make my family, my chosen family here, a lot of my fan base. And so I started creating this YouTube channel that, a lot of Asian Americans, they can't do mainstream. They can't like be a part of mainstream artists. So YouTube is kind of where they really flourished. And so I came up along, like I was in a competition with Kina Grannis and David Choi and um, uh, Paul Date. Some of these people have become just some of my dearest friends. And we all just kind of grown into loving the support system that is now intact for Asian American artists, that is now spilling into mainstream, inevitably so. And so that's where I am, and I hope to continue. Should I pass it on to Jason?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I was thinking if we go reverse order, that'll be me. Yeah, it's very inspiring story of your story to hear. Personally, why what got me started in art is when I was a child, I was not able to sit still for a long time. I was always very active. So when I was in elementary school, that is actually when I was also in China, about third grade. There is a dancing teacher hand out flyers to the class I was in. So they asked you if you like to join a dance class after school. And at the moment, I didn't know what it was until I realized I'm at the dance class. My father took me there. There's two kids that was dancing, doing a demonstration, which is absolutely amazing. It blew my mind. So that's how I started dancing. So ever since then, I started, like a after school kind of program in Shanghai. That's where I started. And then through competition, I went to a professional dancing academy in Beijing. It's a boarding school. I left my hometown. At the time, my father was in New York. I was in Beijing attending the dance academy, and my mom was in Shanghai. So three of us were in three cities for 3 years. So that was a tough time. And right around when I was 12, about seventh grade, I came to America with my mom, to unite with my dad. That's when I realized I have to keep going. I found my coach here. Been through a lot of, curves. Finally, met many partners I have worked with, and then just after school every day I would go practice. I would go have lessons and training until I think the year 2010 when I won my first national championship. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually make it as Asian American, because at the time in America there was no Asian American dancing. But there are like very good Asian dancers out there, and especially now there are a lot of good Asian dancers from China. And also you have the current formal, I would say, ballroom dancing champion Victor Fong from California. They are all my role model. So yeah, I think what started me in art is just the sheer fact that I could not sit still. I like to move around. So dancing was it for me. And I've been doing that since I'm 7. So it's well over 2 decades. And I can't imagine myself be doing anything else. That's it. I'm going to pass it on to my buddy Gigi right there.
Hey, me and Jason actually went to school together. way back when. But yeah, okay, so what was the original question, Brian?
What actually got you interested?
Because I was really encapsulated by these stories, and I was just like,
of course, so am I. So what got you into the arts?
Okay, well, I guess I've had a kind of weird upbringing. I grew up, I'm born and raised in New York City, downtown New York. I went to LaGuardia with Jason here, performing arts school, high school, for acting. But I started actually at a very young age. My dad, who is white, and my mom, who's Taiwanese, I'm mixed actually. Um, he kind of always wanted to be an actor and a musician, and was just like, hey, do you want to do these things, like, hey, try these out. And so when I was growing up, I was doing like commercials and stuff. I have a twin sister as well, so we would do all these little commercials, these little, we had little bowl cuts, we would do a Walmart commercial, Kmart, whatever. And when I was 11, I actually did a show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's like on Nickelodeon, and I played the voice of Aang, who's the lead character, and I did the voice for a season, the first season, and it was like a mind blowing thing for me. I was like, oh my god, it's this mixed kind of cool, like East meets West. It was these white guys writing an anime basically in America, and it was like, it was a really really cool opportunity, and I recorded the whole season, and I did the voice, and then it aired, and I got fired. I got fired because I had puberty, and I was in New York, and they were recording in LA, and I was like kind of devastated. And then they hired this white guy to play the role of Aang, and I was kind of like perturbed by everything, because I was already as an Asian kid having so much trouble finding roles to play, because I started pretty young. As a young actor. I was going to be in School of Rock, and I was supposed to play the guitarist, and I met with Richard Linklater, and I was gonna be this guitar kid in this movie, and they cast me, and then they again went for a Spanish kid for the guitar, and they wanted an Asian kid on the piano because that makes more sense to the mainstream public. And I was sitting there going like, what is this world? I'm 11, and I'm being thrown around, and it was very difficult, and I got very disheartened. And I remember kind of quitting acting and music for a couple of years, until I finally did a musical as a teenager in my middle school. Like in the end of middle school, I did Guys and Dolls, and I played Sky Masterson, which is the role that like Marlon Brando plays in the movie. And it was like a huge, like, eye-opening thing. I can be a lead as an Asian guy. I can be a lead of something. Is that possible? And I did it, and I had such a great time. Then I ended up going to LaGuardia for acting, which is this really wonderful performing arts school in New York that I speak. It's just my favorite place. I think it's a beautiful place that allows kids to really let their potential fly. And I ended up acting there. They have an acting program, kind of like a major. And then right out of there, I went to NYU Tisch for theater and got my BFA in theater there as well, to just sort of cement myself in my theater training as an actor. And when I was in NYU, I was still in New York, obviously. I got my first role in a show called Carrie Diaries, which is on Netflix. It's like a prequel to Sex and the City. It's like a teeny bopper, like it's a fun show. It's like romantic, and there's all kinds of gossip going on and all that. And then from there, I just started doing a lot more acting on TV and film. And at the same time, I was writing music as a private thing, and I was never sharing any of the music that I was making, because it was just like, oh, I'm an actor. I can only be an actor. I have to give it my all because it's already so hard. How could I focus on two things? And then sort of about 3 years ago, I was doing a show called Scream on VH1. It's like based on the Scream horror movies. And I was finding myself as an actor, you often have like months of time where you're just doing kind of like nothing, like wait, especially if you're not a lead character, you're kind of waiting around. And I found myself just in my hotel room, like waiting to go on set and wishing I had more to do. And I started recording in my room on my iPad on GarageBand, and I was just making demos and demos and demos. And then I got home, and I was like, I need to teach myself how to produce and record this stuff. And then about a year and a half ago, I released my first single on Spotify, which is a song I wrote a long time ago. And it's reached almost 1 million listens now on Spotify. And it's like, you just got to put it out there. It was kind of the thing. I didn't do any promotion or anything. It was just like, hey, hope this works. And that's the beautiful thing about being a musician now. You can kind of release your own music without a label. You can record it in your bedroom, and it can sound good, and you have the creativity for that. And So that's how I got into these things. And music wise, I used to sing in church. I'm not necessarily very religious. I just would sing in church, and I would sing. I grew up going to these meditations every week, because we were a mixture of Buddhist and Taoist, and my dad's all kinds of spiritualities, and we would sing at these things all the time. And the mixture of those two things have sort of gotten me where I am now as an actor and a musician. And I would say getting an agent is a thing that a lot of actors really, really have trouble doing and breaking into that. And I feel like they think that they have to do something specific, but it's a lot of the time it's just doing as much as you can. Short films, theater, showcases that are available. And eventually I was doing a showcase, I remember, in college, and I just was meeting with a bunch of different agents through that. And we started working together, and they started sending me out on things. But yeah, that's sort of a long-winded answer to your question.
I'll go next.
Yes, you next.
Yeah, I think I was always kind of an artist from a childhood. I've been making, movies with my parents' camcorder with my brother, and then my brother got really tired of it, so I started making it by myself with like stuffed animals, and I realized that I haven't really stopped. Like I still have
There they are.
like I would use them for my stream and stuff. As a as a kid, I thought I was gonna be a cartoonist because I like to draw. And my parents are both like artistic, but never really pursued it. My dad's an architect, which I think is kind of like uh, art with math, which kind of how my brain works too. I was very good at math, but I think I'm also naturally artistic. But how I got into theater and acting is it was my sophomore year in high school, and I was watching these theater kids do a skit for a rally, and in front of all the high school students. And at the time, I've always been kind of a quiet, shy guy. And at the time, I was sitting in the back of the classrooms. So I was surprised when I was watching the skit. My thought was, oh, I could do better than that. And I don't speak up in class at all. But so I started taking classes in junior year, and I realized that even when I was a little kid, I would be very shy in real life, and then when I'm on stage, I'm the loudest. Um, and I realized that well, this is kind of very personal, but my brother and I used to fight a lot, and and I realized that art is my way of, or theater really is my way of speaking out to be heard, because the lines are written down. So when I speak, the other person has to listen, which in real life, at least with my brother at the time, that wasn't the case. Yeah, it was a form of escape in a way. Yeah, and then I started, just kept going. College, studied it, and my parents have been very when I started, they were very cautiously supportive. They were always supportive, but my dad would be like, say like, oh, you want to you want to be a news reporter, maybe, because that's kind of a performing, or a lawyer, because that's also kind of like you're in front of an audience, kind of. So he didn't really get it. But when I started making money as an actor, that's when they were like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
So like, oh, now it's a real job.
Yeah, so yeah, there's money. So that's my journey. Brock?
Also, Dice isn't gonna brag, but he's is the star of the one of the hottest video games, Ghost of Tsushima now. The face of it, literally the lead character, and an esteemed Cirque du Soleil clown.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna talk about it. But speaking of Julian, you brought up like the main character thing with Sky
Yeah.
Masterson. That's how I
Yeah.
feel about Ghost of Tsushima, and even at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I've played some leading roles.
Yeah.
It's for an Asian American male or female. It's um I don't know if it's the racism, or it's within me. Like, it's the way I see myself. I see myself as as a supporting character.
No, yeah, I totally, yeah.
It's a struggle to see myself as the leading man.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel the same way. Until I saw Crazy Rich Asians, I was like,
yeah.
how will I be considered a romantic lead if it feels like we aren't considered romantic leads in reality? You know what I mean? And then suddenly you see an attractive Asian male, because there are those in the world, obviously, and considered that in a film that becomes so popular, and it's like, oh, suddenly, wait a second, like reminder of that. It's,
Yeah. Anyway, Brooke, we're bringing out the
Hey.
heat.
Rock.
what's up?
So I come from an artistic family, so I kind of have the opposite background as Jane, you know, in that it's been in my blood for generations. My father's grandma was an opera singer. My mother's mother, who's 95 and in amazing health and is an incredible woman, was known as the Songbird of Manzanar when she was in the Japanese internment camps during World War II. She was the famous singer who would sing at all the camp dances. And both of my parents are artists and musicians and singers, and they met in the 70s in my dad's R&B band when he was the front man and my mom auditioned to be the lead singer in his band. And that's how they met. And then they had a music store and then created a music production company. And so my entire childhood was my father promoting concerts and for festivals and et cetera. So I was always backstage with my two sisters, with, you know, rock and roll Hall of Famers and people like Ray Charles and stuff. And it was that's all I knew. So show business was kind of in my blood, and it was kind of a way of life that I just that was really all I knew growing up. My oldest sister, Brittany, so both of my sisters are actor, writer, singers as well. Brittany's on a Marvel show called Marvel's Runaways as Tina Minoru, the evil witch mom. And Brittany is my oldest sister, and Brianna and I followed in her footsteps. So when she did theater, we did theater. When she did music classes, we did music classes. And all three of us went to school for it. And the difference, I think, with me versus most of my Asian friends is that my family, since they are all artists, they knew the life of what it meant to be an artist and the struggle that involved, but also the reward and the value that was wrapped up in that as well. So they encouraged us to pursue lives in the arts because they understood that it was a calling. It was something that we needed to follow. So I went to Marymount Manhattan College in New York City, studied theater, spent 11 years in New York doing downtown experimental theater, performing at places like the Public. And then I moved to LA when I booked the lead in an NBC Universal comedy. And like Julian, was recast for somebody famous. And then that took me out to Los Angeles, back home near my family. And it was a good time when my sisters were starting to have babies and my grandma was getting up into her 90s. My grandpa, who was alive then, was also getting into his 90s. So it felt like the right time to go back home and be with family. And I had been asking the universe for a reason to get me back out to LA. And it gave me that. It gave me a great paycheck, and it gave me a lot of opportunities, and it redirected me out into a different world out in LA. And then funny enough, that's how Jane and Dice and I met, relationships that I had fostered in New York with Maya Jalis, the theater director, and Lauren Yee, the playwright, came back around in when I was in Southern California, and that's how Cambodian Rock Band fell into my life. And the three of us, along with the rest of our bandmates, worked on, developed, and originated that show for years, and that was a big part of my life. And then again, you know, it's interesting how you find the universe redirecting you in some ways. I was at that point, I was falling into advocacy work. You know, I always knew that the intersection of arts and service was something that was very important to me. And from when I was a little kid, like 6 years old, I always said I wanted to be a tap dancing doctor because I wanted to entertain people, but I wanted to help them too. So I think from a very early age, I understood that there needed to be an intersection of arts and service in my life. And that was what my purpose was. So going back to the redirection, we worked on CRB for years and years, and it was incredibly integral in terms of my development, my growth, and also fitting the intersection of arts and service, because we were serving a group of people, the Cambodian community, the Khmer community, who were still dealing with the harsh ramifications and consequences of the genocide and what they survived and what their families survived. So through that process, again, that show took its course. And then when it went on to a different stage, I was recast. And it was a matter again of, making a different choice, somebody more famous or whatever. And so it's interesting now when you realize what plans you set for yourself and where your life ends up taking you. You usually aren't able to measure it until it's a little bit in hindsight, but I would never have founded Be an Arts Hero, and we're a lobbying organization. It never would have happened if I was still on the road with Cambodian Rock Band. So I feel very grateful to have lived through experiences that felt devastating. But through that, I think, the universe always has a plan for you, and you never really know where it's going to take you. But I think if you are in alignment with what your North Star is, and you always know what's driving you and what your purpose is, if you can get really, really, really keyed into what that is and listen to it, then you're always going to land on your feet. So it's been a very interesting journey, but that's how I got to where I am now. And I never thought that in 2020 I would be lobbying Congress for massive relief for 5.1 million arts workers, but that's what I'm doing now. And it has been one of probably the most gratifying, life-changing experience. And it was born out of desperate need, out of this crisis, but it also was born out of a series of redirects, which were unanticipated, but very, very much what I needed. So that's me.
Great. So I know you guys have done a lot of things. You guys have a lot of accomplishments, but have you guys faced any challenges or discrimination as Asian Americans involved in the arts? And anyone can begin.
I'll give a quick story. So I'm sure all of us on this call have had similar experiences. I've had encounters with casting agents, with agents, directors who will low key or not so low key just commit acts of racism. So at OSF, we had these meetings with folks who, could hire us for jobs, right? And I met with an agent, and I gave him my name, and he said something like, oh, you're must be Japanese, right? And I said, yeah, how did you know? And he was like, well, it's just same letters as sushi. So I had to address it.
Oh my God.
To address
I remember
It's
that.
horrible.
Write an email and because in the moment I was a little bit shocked. And it's
Oh,
also,
God.
you're in a position where this person can give you a job. So it's a really strange situation for artists when they're in a position with possible employers, because you don't necessarily feel like you have the right, or you don't feel comfortable most of the time to assert yourself or to call someone on their bull SHIT.
Mhm.
So are we allowed to curse on this? Anyway, so that was one thing. And then I had a similar run-in with a casting director, a commercial casting director, where we went around and we gave our names, and he said, Ishibashi, oh, that's an interesting name. It sounds like something that I would order at a Chinese food restaurant. And so it's, and then I just in the moment said, that's racist. And it made the audition really awkward, and I didn't book that job. And the two white guys in the room with me were really awkward and didn't do anything, not allies. But yeah, stuff like that happens constantly, and you get used to it, but you also learn how to assert yourself so that you can stand up for yourself.
I really want to.
Who wants to go next?
I'm not really going next, but I just want to make a comment on that. I really respect how you were able to stand up for that. In my situations, it's not exactly the same, but it's other forms of being offensive or making things that are funny. But I just personally, I'm not extroverted like that, and I wouldn't ever have the confidence to call out someone on their actions. and I just really have to respect you for doing so. And
but you can. It's
Mad
just
respect.
and because it's hard. It's so awkward and uncomfortable.
It's so hard when,
in
especially when they're the person who's going to give you your job. It's just like that, and that's
Exactly.
always the situation. Unfortunately, it's crazy. I had two producers on a show, the children's show that I did, and they were both white, and I one of them was from the LGBT community, and I thought they were going to, you know, be allies with the with the whole situation, and then the first day on my screen test, and look, I'm mixed, and so I experience weird situations, not necessarily like as overt negative racism like that, but they did something really, really inappropriate. They took me on my first day, and they stood me next to the only other Asian person on the entire production. And they said, "Does he look like her? Or should we like put some mascara on his eyes and pull him?"
No.
And I remember sitting there going like, okay, so this millions and millions of dollars production, I'm standing here, it's my first day. Am I going to make a good impression? Is it wrong to speak up about what's going on here? And I remember I just looked him in the eyes and I said, what you just said was really inappropriate. It was really wrong to do this. I looked over at her. I said, I'm so sorry that he's doing this to you right now. I can't believe that this is happening. And let's not do that again. You hired me for me, and let's do this or not. Like, and from then on, he was, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. Oh, didn't know it was a big deal. I was just like, I couldn't believe that people feel so comfortable, like you were saying, Brooke, to speak the way that they do. They say these offhanded comments like it's some funny light thing, and it's just it's crazy. But I really, you know, Brian, if you encounter any of that stuff and you really feel it's wrong, it's something offensive, like speak up for yourself. I know it can be really scary, but I promise you're going to feel like you know, it's for all of us. Going forward, people need to hear what is wrong. Sometimes they literally somehow have made it this long to not know what they're saying is racist, and they need to be reminded of that. And it doesn't have to be in like a really angry way. You can just say, hey, what I think you said, what you said just now is inappropriate, and I don't think it's right to say that. And I you know, that's it. Just be straightforward with them, and I think eventually they'll appreciate that moment. And hopefully, I think that guy, you know, look back and wait a second, that's something inappropriate. Hopefully the person that Brooke spoke to said, wait a second, I can't make comments like this anymore, because that's an inappropriate thing to say to someone. It's rude, it's racist. You know. Yeah, it's crazy.
we don't have to go directly to anyone. If anyone just wants to speak up about their experiences, you can just hop on ahead. We don't have to go from person to person.
I think a lot of times I haven't had overt racist comments like that in the industry. I have it around just as general, like if I'm just walking around. So those are kind of easier to deal with and dismiss as well, because it's not like I'm not hinging on the person offering me anything. But I think in the music world, first of all, as someone who, like, I can sit in a room and produce a song. That's a rare thing to have, as one female, and two, like, Asian American female. And so I think when I do gigs, a lot of times their first impression of me, of what I understand, is that, oh, she's Asian, so her voice must be kind of small, and she plays the piano, which I do, and she probably isn't really all that great and whatnot. And so I immediately feel that, and that when the way they look at me, and so I have to go on stage and kind of double down on my performance, which is I hate doing that, because then I'm not doing it for me, right? But at the same time, I want the room to understand that what you're thinking is of who I am is probably not what you shouldn't assume, is all I want to say. And so when I go on stage, I try my best to always do like 200%. And there's a point where that became exhausting, where it was rewarding, because afterwards they'd be like, oh my God, I had no idea that your voice sounded like that. I'm like, oh, well, that's such a sweet thing to say, and I appreciate it so much. But I think in myself, that was both something that I, of course, love doing, surprising the room, but also like it became a little tiring because I had to configure like, who am I doing this for? And so that it's a little bit of a trap sometimes in the arts where people are kind of hounding on you with microaggressions, but in the end, like Dice was saying earlier, you start seeing yourself like you have to prove something out outwardly, and so it took some time to kind of understand that I don't have to prove anything, and that what they say is not going to go away anytime soon. Like that's something that I as maybe I'm just kind of jaded in that way, where I'm like, there will be assumptions no matter who I am. I could be a white girl, that no matter. But that I have to kind of get back to my process, which is in the end, the most valuable to each of us as artists. The end. Next.
Yeah.
Also, oh, you go ahead.
Okay,
Who?
so I have a similar experience with Jane. I know that in my school, all of like the Asian students, they are really good at science and they do like science competitions and math Olympiad. So it was really hard for me to join theater because I was the only Asian girl there. Everyone else was white. And a lot of people stereotype in my school. So they're like, oh, you don't look this certain way. How in the world did you get this part? I didn't like they were like confused in a way. They were like, oh, I didn't know you could sing. This is wow, great for you. It was really uncomfortable for me. Yeah, it was really difficult for me. But I think that we really need to look at people based on like who they are and not really like I mean, we need to look at people based on what they do and not, you know, like how they look on the outside. Like we have to stop stereotyping. And I know that right now, a lot of the Asians, they play like the awkward fob with the heavy accent or like the nerd side character. And I also think that, I mean, it's like it's like it is the casting agents and the directors who are kind of like making these movies and stuff like that who are casting us for these things. So how do you like what do you guys think like how do you guys think we could break this issue because it's been happening for a really long time and all of these Asians are portrayed as these characters. So do you guys have any ideas?
Well, generally, I mean, I feel like a lot of stuff historically has just been written and created by white men, and they tend to make things either for other white men or in favor of white men. So when we think of the nerdy character, I mean, I've went into thousands of auditions basically for characters who are like this like nerdy, quiet, shy Asian student kid who's good at math, and it's like constantly these things, and it tends to always be show run by white men, and when I've had the honor to work with a director of color or even a female director, maybe not even of color, but just even a female director has more foresight in that way. I've noticed. I worked on a film recently that was a historical piece. All the characters are historically white, but I played Percy Shelley, and she was looking to change the races of the characters just because she felt it was important to represent it by spirit and not by what they look like. And I don't look anything like Percy Shelley, but she was like, you have his heart and you have his energy. And so there we want to cast it. And I think going forward, and the beautiful thing is we are living in 2020. Kamala Harris is the first woman and woman of color and Black woman and Asian woman to be in the vice president's seat, just elected. I mean, like this is historic stuff, and we are constantly moving forward in that way, and we are right on the forefront of this. And I think all of us here, us entertainers who are speaking right now, have lived through a lot of this in the last 20 years, 30 years that we've been around in this business. But like, this is the best time, and it will continue to be the best time if we continue working our best. Creating our own work, I think, is a really important thing, because when you have these people like us, or people who understand a little bit more the intricacies of humanity and look to represent those intricacies and those unique factors, those people that are show running these shows will write non-stereotypical characters. And I would say for Julie's Green Room, which was the children's show I did with Julie Andrews, they weren't looking for an Asian guy to play the character. They were looking for just a person who could sing and dance and act and play guitar and stuff. And I came in, and they said, "You're not really what we expected, but you came in with your guitar," and I sang some song, and I whistled or something, and I did a bunch of random things that I could do. And they were like, "We like you, and we want you to be this character." And a lot of the time, we actually have, as actors specifically, Rosanna, like a chance when there are roles that are what are called colorblind or open ethnicity, to just come in as ourselves, not trying to represent any kind of stereotype, but really just come in as ourselves and let that speak to them. And hopefully, as time goes on, I think these casting directors, these showrunners will see that you are interesting and exciting to watch. And that's, and if you can't, and you keep coming up against these things, that's the time to make your own show, because you know that you are,
I want to add to the nerd character stereotype, because two of my most proud roles in Salsa Save the Girls and Imaginary Invalid were very, very nerdy and awkward and shy. But what was important, I think what it boils down to is the writing. And if, you know, also these roles were not meant to be Asian. They were meant for any race. But did I get the role because it was more, it's easier for the audience to accept someone like me to play that kind of role? I don't know. But the trick really, I think, is to make the character human. It's all about the humanity. And they don't, the hope is that the audience sees that and not the caricature. Yeah.
Rosanna, when you say how do we change this generational systemic problem, I think it's a matter of demanding the change and then being the change. So it's it's a twofold thing for me. We're in a time, if we're talking strictly about theater, of we see you white American theater. My colleagues Karen Olivo and Eden Espinosa started Affect, Artists for Economic Transparency. So there are, in the midst of the social reckoning, we have folks who are coming to the table and holding people's feet to the fire. And this is a very promising time, I think, especially for your generation, to be coming up and then going into the creative workforce, because there is a new climate where we can perhaps feel a little bit more comfortable to call people out on their bullshit. And so I think, when Julian was saying, you just got to show up and and do your job and be the best version of the role, so that they you're a force to be reckoned with, and they can't deny you. In a way, I know that especially for BIPOC folks, there's the pressure of being excellent, because you have to excel in order to be better than the average white person. I know that exists, but there is a matter of working on becoming the best version of yourself and not modeling yourself after what you think you need to be in order to succeed. But really just being so incredibly powerful as the best version of you that you are undeniable. And so in that, it's a matter of demanding the change by holding your employers, your colleagues, your teachers accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and then and demanding that change from them, and then being the change in that you are working steadily on envisioning and creating the kind of landscape that you want to be a part of, because no one's going to do that for you. So it really is an individual responsibility as much as it is a collective responsibility, I think.
I'm sorry, but it's nearing 10 o'clock. I don't know. I feel like we're having an amazing conversation. So yeah, I know the time just went by, but are you guys happy with continuing for just a few more minutes, or
Yeah, I can.
Sure.
I have until
everyone's fine with that?
10 more minutes. Yeah.
That's great. So recently COVID-19 has run rampant in our lives. So as an artist, how's that affected you guys?
A lot of voiceover work now. I can see Dice. I know you got that studio at home now, I'm sure.
I don't, but
You
yeah.
don't?
No,
Oh, but
I mean, because I would still prefer it. Anyway, that's a long story.
of course.
Yeah,
No.
lots of VO or more VO still going, but no theater, basically.
Yeah,
for
theater
actors.
is on hold. Yeah,
But
a lot of. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead. I was going to say, Dice, you should mention what happened with your TV show if you feel like it.
Well, the TV shows were delayed, but they are still happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I think.
I booked a CBS pilot on March 7th, and I went to do the table read, and the day the table read was happening was the 10th, and we were all going into quarantine, so we were shut down. And then it's like postponed
No.
basically like indefinitely, and it was about
Oh.
Congress, and I was like, this is gonna make no sense now. But I mean, I was saying with VO work right now with COVID, I mean, everyone's trying to figure out, I guess, how can you do things at home. I know a lot of commercial agents are asking for people, do you have a photographer that you can shoot, at your house or around your house remotely? I've done a couple of VO jobs from home where you literally like remotely log in your microphone and they get a full stream of your home studio. And it's a lot of self tapes. You don't go into offices anymore. You do self tapes at home, which we already did a lot of anyways. I'm sure you guys are all used to that. It's just everything's slower, and a lot of things get postponed when you think they're not going to get postponed. And I know for me, I'm sure Jane's doing a lot of this. Like as I've been actually producing a lot of music, because that's something you can do on your computer in a studio. I've been actually finding myself composing a lot of scores for short documentary stuff and podcasts.
That's awesome.
Just trying to find, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, it's just like what can we do on our computer at home? I mean, there's so many things, and we're in such a lucky time that at the same time we're locked in our homes, but we have this beautiful internet and Zoom thing that we can do, so it's finding ways to do that. And I guess, shooting films with your friends that are testing negative. And I just shot a film with my friend, where like 90% of it's a feature film, 90% of the film takes place on Zoom and in his bedroom, and it's all sort of him dealing with editing video and all kinds of stuff. And we shot every other character on Zoom, and he was on Zoom. And I guess that's, there's going to be movies like that coming out this year. I think that comes out like January or something like that. And it's, you just got to adapt. This is constantly, for actors, for musicians, for artists, we constantly are adapting to the climate. Whether it's COVID, whether there's a new city that we have to move to because that's the center of where everyone's shooting things, whether music is no longer on records and CDs, it's now on streaming, and we distribute through independently or through Spotify and streams instead. And it's all constantly changing. So the important thing, I guess I would say to that question, Brian, would be just like find ways to continue making these art and working, no matter what condition we have. And if it comes down to us writing and producing and doing our own things or meeting with other people that are able to do that, we got to do it. And that's personally what I've been doing during COVID. I'm sure you guys are finding ways to keep busy and do something because it's crazy. It's crazy out here.
For me, since COVID started, I've been working at like 50% capacity and doing some classes online. And around the middle of the pandemic, I hosted a online dance competition. That was a great thing for me to do. We had kids from China, from Texas, from California joined us. And I'm teaching. I hosted a competition for the first time. And on my own part, at the moment, I'm dancing and representing Canada because my dance partner lives there. I travel to Montreal to practice. We fly to each other to get lessons, to get trained. But since March, we did our last competition in February, championship together. So since March, we couldn't practice with each other. So the border is closed as far as, you know, Canada doesn't want to open up to US, as we're obviously the problem here. And so, I don't know in my professional competitive dancing what I should at this moment besides just practicing or trying to do something on my own. Yeah, it's really tough. It's we you have to do what you have to do, but also at the same time to survive in this environment. Yeah, pretty much.
Piggybacking on that, Jason, if just for the Music for Change folks to understand the reality of what it's like for arts workers right now, if we're just talking about the landscape and just how bad the crisis is, since pandemic hit, there's roughly 2.7 million arts workers who are fully unemployed. So that means in an industry like ours, where our insurance is most of the time linked to our employment, you have 2.7 million people who are at risk of losing their health insurance during a deadly pandemic, who have lost that FPUC money, the extra $600 of extra insurance benefits from emergency pandemic. Federal pandemic unemployment compensation that's been elapsed since August 1st. So it's been 4 months now of a lifeline of funds that's just completely disappeared into thin air. So there are some people who in the arts and culture sector who are doing okay. I have a roof over my head. I've got food in my fridge. But for so many folks, our industry, we were the first ones to shut down. We will be the last ones to reopen. And for 2.7 million arts workers, there are no jobs to return to for the foreseeable future. So it is a matter of, and it's not hyperbolic to say, but it is a matter of life and death for so many of us, because there is no industry to come back to. And in terms of the broader scope of how bad the crisis can get if we don't get relief immediately, is that we're seeing massive shutdowns. So 90% of music venues nationwide are saying that they will likely not survive the pandemic. So if 90% of music venues aren't going to come back, if they all shutter, what does that mean for people? What does that mean for people like Jane? What does that mean for our musician friends who rely on these venues to stay afloat because that's their bread and butter, right? For our touring musician friends, et cetera. And not just the musicians, the crew, the engineers, the designers, et cetera. So you're looking at an entire ecosystem that is imploding. And as it relates to you folks, Brian and Rosanna and the younger generation, we look at the larger impact. We look at possibly losing an entire generation of young people who would have entered the creative workforce because there are not going to be any jobs for you folks. And then beyond that, even if you don't want to enter the creative workforce, you're also looking at an entire generation of folks who wouldn't be contributing into the creative economy, as consumers. So the devastation is very huge, and it impacts you, Brian, Rosanna, and you folks directly, because what if there are no symphonies to join? What if there are no dance studios? What if there are no, if TV film production has greatly decreased and will not return to at 100% for a good while? Then the jobs just plummet. So there's less opportunity and it doesn't meet the demand. So it directly impacts your generation because, where do you go from here? So it's the crisis it's still happening, and it is going to get worse. And that's why we need immediate relief, and not just relief. We need investment coming out of the crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my music teachers, she does opera and like choir, and right now she had to right now there's nothing going on because all of these venues are closed. So she had to stop singing for since quarantine, and now she works at a coffee shop. So it's really difficult because I know you guys still have to pay your bills. Like, you guys got to get some money, and you guys have to have income, and it's like what do you do if there's no like opportunities to get jobs and stuff like that? So we definitely need relief.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's crazy right now. It's all about finding new ways to make money if you can, doing, you know, any other skills that you have that hopefully fit into the artistic ideal. I found myself editing and doing graphic design and video work as well, just to, you know, because you have to, you know.
One of my two friends from the dance industry, Pasha Pashkov and Daniela Pashkov, they just started their first season with the Dancing with the Star as pros, and you know, doing really well on the show. But just seeing the show actually had no audience broke my heart. You know, it's a thing that you need people to cheer for you for. It's a thing that people, you know, dancers are fueled on these excitements and you know, interactions, and just seeing the show. Of course, you can watch at home, but just for the dancers to have people around you to support for you, to clap for you, that means a lot. You know, watching the show with no audience is just like really sad. Like,
Yeah, so my high school, we're doing a live production, oh, not a live production, a virtual production of a chorus line, but it's like all online on Zoom, and we are like lagging the whole time. It's really difficult, it's really hard because you gotta sing soprano, alto, bass, tenor, and like you can't do that on Zoom because like, yeah, the harmony is just like really difficult. So that's what, that's 2020.
That must be
Anyway,
so crazy.
yeah, yes, it is. We have to wrap up, but is there anything that you guys want to mention? Do you guys want to promote anything? Feel free to do that.
Check out Jane's album and go download
Oh my
and
God.
buy Soraya.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna check.
my
I'm definitely gonna check
Yes,
out Jane's album.
It is the best music I've ever heard.
Oh my
It is-
God.
let me just pimp you real quick. So I'll put it in the chat. But if you search Surrija Soraya
Where'd she go?
on Apple Music, she's hiding because she hates
Come
me.
back here.
Buy her album so she can get the money, and also she's mentioned this a little bit, but she's YouTube famous. So like go look up her videos. So I'll promote Jane for her.
Oh my gosh. I'm frozen,
I'm
so I
excited to
can't
listen
tell
to
it.
that album.
It's so
I'm also
good.
excited to play
It's
Ghost of
really
Tsushima.
good.
I gotta play now
yeah.
that I know you're the lead, man. I want to control you.
I mean,
Yes.
I don't get residuals, so just if you want.
What?
It's a great game.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I heard it's amazing.
It's a gorgeous game.
It's a great game.
Yeah, I've seen how beautiful it is. Yeah, man. I'm really excited.
I shouldn't say. I'm very grateful for Sucker Punch. They they paid me a lot of money, so I'm very grateful.
We are grateful for them.
Yeah, we are.
Wait, so Julian, if I went to Avatar and watched the first season, is that you?
It is such a long story. I mean, when it first aired in 2003, it was me on TV. It was recast. A lot of voiceover roles. They can redo the whole thing. So it was.
And they whitewashed it.
They whitewashed it, man.
Damn,
it's happened so
because
many times.
That is my favorite like Nickelodeon piece.
I know it's such an incredible show. I mean, it's an incredible show still, but it was upsetting. Yes. I mean,
I'm so
you should
sorry.
check out Kipo. You should check out Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beast.
Yes.
It's a very beautiful, inclusive show with a bunch of people of color as the leads. A bunch of really Sterling K. Brown's in it.
Awesome.
It's wonderful, and it's got like an Avatar vibe, but it's also very modern, and it's and Steven Universe-y. It's really cool.
And what is your music name again?
Tarun, Tarune. Yeah, I make like slow sad bops.
But you got 1 million listens, whatever.
I don't know, man. Everyone's sad.
Million people want to be sad with you.
Everybody wants to be sad right now. Are you kidding me?
Everyone's like, I need some sad music.
And I'll say, you know, with the enthusiasm and everything of today's events for if people were in favor of Biden and Harris winning or not, you know, I want to say, you know, it doesn't end there. You know, we still have Georgia, and
No,
and
it's a
there's
lot.
the idea that, you know, our activism is 24/7. Our activism never stops. So getting a president elected is one thing, but then there's still great work to be done, right? So I just want to impart on anybody who's watching, and the Music for Change folks, especially because you are young advocates and activists, is that, you know, your individual voice has so much power. So just the idea that you writing, calling, tweeting, tagging your Congress people and the people who you elected to represent you, it matters, it counts. Because when we go into these Senate offices and they tell us, are you all the ones who've been tweeting us thousands of times? They have to log it and they have to pay attention. So the more of us who are advocating for and demanding the things that we need and the change we want to see, the more likely it's going to happen. So it's just a matter, I think, of like using your voice and knowing that you can make a difference. And it's just a matter of all of us taking that action together. So I'm very inspired, you know, with Rosanna and all you folks, Brian, with what you're all doing with your group, you know, individually.
Me too.
And
it's beautiful, beautiful. We're bringing all this
amazing.
together. Thank you.
Yeah, really.
All right, thank you guys. I think we have to wrap up. If you want to learn more about Music for Change, link in description box below. Thank you guys so much for joining. Brian, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, no, of course. I want to thank all of you for being here. It was so insightful to hear what all of you had to say, and there's the audience can go back and watch everything over again. I would want to. So many interesting things. So thank you all.
I just want to say before everyone go, to all the fellow Asian American new generation out there, follow your dreams, find your passion, hang on. We will get out of this. Just don't lose faith. Everything will be okay again.
Speaking to my generation.
Well said, man. Well said.
Yay, Jason. Thank you.
Yes.
Take care, guys.